Okay, now we're recording. Okay, Kevin Graham. Who is Kevin?
Hello.
Hello,
Hi, Kevin.
Kevin. Do you know the methods we're using? Oh, that's you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kevin, we're recording.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the second breakout room of the meeting on March 4th about the vision of XR for 2020 and about the pamphlet by Rupert, Red, Skeena, Rathor, and Mark Lopatin. But always everybody can speak whatever is alive for you. You always can talk whatever is important alive for you. You can talk about it. And because everyone is familiar with the method, I want to ask who would like to start as a speaker. Okay, so
Not.
Benman wants to speak first. 5 minutes, Bill?
Sure. I got
Okay.
it. I can time it. if you want.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
So Benman, whom you want to speak to?
I'd like to speak to Kevin.
Okay.
Okay, so I'd like to talk a bit about the most recent time I've been to a XR meeting. And then I'd like to give a brief reflection on the paper that we're talking about and the some thoughts I had.
So you want to, I hear that you would like to talk about the recent meeting that you were at an XR meeting.
Yeah.
And as well to briefly to summarize the paper that we're talking about.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely bang on. Okay, so a few things happened. I made some notes. One, I had a discussion with somebody about concerns about things like recruiting young people into the movement and getting them to do things that weren't necessarily, you know, they didn't necessarily have full, you know, autonomy in what they were doing. Can you reflect that?
So there was a, you had a discussion about how to get youth more engaged. But I missed the last part, unfortunately, Ben, I'm sorry.
There were some concerns that they might not be acting with like full autonomy. You know, they might be getting swept away a little bit in the movement and, you know, sort of doing things that, you know, getting excited and sort of doing things that are not entirely volitional.
Well, so you're saying that the youth were they're not really following with the XR guidelines, perhaps, or the youth are kind of going outside of what the motivations are of the XR team.
Okay, so that was the first one, and the second one was I managed to hold like a little mini empathy circle last time I was at an XR movement. It was during a discussion, and I managed to get four or five people sort of reflecting each other for a short while in the format that we've got here, a similar format we've got here. It was very good, and the energy really rose as we did that. But there was a couple of people who didn't feel entirely confident, so we did it for a little bit, but it didn't last for that long. And then I said, let's draw it to a close and let's just go back to having a regular discussion.
So at that meeting you had implemented a empathy style discussion where you're and you had that working for a while, but it seemed like there was a couple people that weren't weren't really weren't engaging well with it. So then you decided to wrap it up.
That's right. Yeah. I didn't want to force the issue. And okay, so and I had another similar thing. Went down to the pub afterwards, and I managed to do some active listening with somebody in a similar way, and that was also again really rewarding. She'd done something similar, so she had a bit of experience with it. So that was good too. And then I had a dispute. I had a bit of a dispute with somebody who was quite established there. He'd been around for quite a long time. And it was when I was facilitating this empathy circle, like a short while later, he came and stood over the table. He came and stood up while we were sat down and told us about how XR does the thing that we should be doing at that point in time. And I got quite angry and I stood up and I left the room. And then I came back a short while later and apologized and explained, I explained my reasons for leaving. And it seemed like there was quite a bit of understanding and mutual connection. But I think there was definitely something stirred up at the same time.
So you had a good experience using an empathy style discussion with someone at the pub afterwards. However, there was another time where when you're in your group, that after the previous empathy discussion that you tried to facilitate, that someone came towards you and you've noticed that there was some misunderstanding or aggression perhaps directed towards you, and you left the room and then came back and tried to reconcile or at least express yourself with the person that you seemingly had that conflict with.
That's right. Yeah. More or less. I didn't feel any aggression towards me. I just felt blocked to sort of speak up and conduct the group. But that was the main thing. Yeah.
Okay, so there you didn't feel any aggression directly or specifically. It's more or less you just felt blocked in that in the ability to communicate at the time.
That's right. Yeah. Cool. Thanks. That's it. I feel complete.
Great. And for me, what I'll do is I'll pass my effort for right now off to Bill. Bill, would you like to take my place?
Sure. So I hear that you'd rather pass and wait a little bit to speak.
Yes, correct.
Okay, great. All right. Let's see. I'll talk to Steve. Yeah. Thanks, Steve.
So, hi, am I
sorry?
listening to you, Bill, or
Yeah.
am I speaking?
No, you're listening to me. If that's okay with you.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. Sure. All right. Well, as in my background, I kind of share Ben's concerns. What I heard from Ben is that might be involving young people before they really understand what they're getting into. We've had children's crusades. We actually had a children's civil rights march in the civil rights. That was considered a seminal movement. But nevertheless, as a teacher, I always want to protect kids and young people and kind of create a safe space for them. And I'll stop there.
Okay. Bill, it sounded like that you recognize that there's some useful exuberance in the movement, and there's some concern that there may be too too much exuberance, too much energy, and that you want to, based on things like the Children's Crusade and aspects where similar things were not very successful, that you want to protect them from what might happen, from what damage might occur from past efforts in that regard.
Yeah, there was a slight correction. The youthful exuberance is, I mean, that's fine, but that really wasn't what I was addressing. I was addressing that when students or young people, I think of them as students,
Okay.
are put into situations that they're not prepared for, either emotionally, physically or whatever, or even cognitively. And it's very hard for them to integrate. And so I'm very protective of that. I'll just stop there for that.
Okay. And right, perhaps, yes, exuberance, I added that. Maybe naivete would, that there
Yeah, or
might be
even,
a better way to express your concern that their lack of experience in these areas might lead
yeah,
them someplace.
yeah. Being that I was young and stupid once too, I feel for those people. So, okay. And I'm very encouraged. I didn't read the book or the pamphlet by Rupert, but this is something that I've been thinking about. I've been following the XR movement, and of course, and what's been happening, and then what I found is that there's been difficulty in communicating with XR, communicating with the public at large, and a lot of mixed messages and a lot of confused messages. I'll stop there.
Yes, your concern is that with what's been going on, that there's an awful lot of information out there that could be confusing or not properly understood by the public at large, and that it could be improved in some way.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what focused, and that's why I'm really excited about this empathic. We call it empathic direct action, or XR listens, because it starts to open up to the public to what XR is really doing, which is trying to build a new form of democracy. I'll stop there.
Right, and so that empathy being the idea of using empathy for better understanding of each other will create a better or higher form of democracy.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a bit conflated. I'm almost out of time here. It's a bit conflated. Empathy is, I think, is obvious for me, is an essential part. But also, XR is talking about. I took a training on citizens' assemblies and people's assemblies. Now, a new thing, community assemblies, and so I have a little bit of understanding about the type of democratic dialogue that they wish to have, which includes empathy, and I'd like to expand on that. And then my time is up, and that's it. So you can reflect that, and then your turn to speak.
Oh, okay, reflect and then speak?
Yeah, right.
Okay. Right, so the idea being that you have been observing the different procedures and practices for democracy, things like People's Assembly and so forth, and so trying to figure out how empathy can, and the XR movement can have an effect or can use those practices in moving forward.
Great. Thanks so much, Steve. I really appreciate it. Thanks. I feel fully heard.
Okay, good. Thank you. I try. Okay. Yeah, a lot of and a lot of what Bill was talking about is my concern too. I might be even, I'm older than Bill, I think. I'm 65, by the way.
You
Hey,
have
hey.
to choose someone. You have to choose someone.
Who are you speaking?
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Pick someone. Let's see who's left. Okay, Carolina,
Yeah, I
can
will
you, will
listen
you
to you.
reflect for me?
Yes,
Okay,
I will try.
okay. And so, yes, having hindsight, looking back to when I was young and stupid, or at least young and naive, or 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 whatever. So I can empathize with people, younger people who have a lot of energy and who want to go out and do things and don't want to waste time thinking about it too much.
So you feel similar to Bill, like you can empathize with young people because you have been young yourself, and you remember the time when you have been naive and full of energy, and you think that that's what's happening to young people who want to deal with things right now, immediately.
Yes, that's it. And so now I'm trying to figure out how to impart that wisdom, the idea that I have been like them, but they have not, maybe they have not been 65 yet. So the how to impart, and this is an age-old dilemma, how to teach the younger people about the experience that you have done, and one of them being that uh, haste makes waste.
So, if I understand you correctly, you're thinking about how to help those young people, how to teach them, so they will not waste their time. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yes, thank you. And I guess this is this is from a story, that we all learned as children. So it is possible for young people, I understand, that if you go too quickly, you will spill the milk or whatever it is, or that the tortoise and the hare being the story of how slow but sure wins the race. And so that's I think it's possible, but I think we need to have a discussion of all the various people, old and young, left and right, green and so forth, to be able to say, how do we do this in the most deliberative way?
Okay, so you're thinking about how to, what kind of actions, how to act, how to behave, and how to act to not burn out before the end, and how to establish long existing movement and actions so it will be persistent and a long experience, even if there is an urgent situation. I'm sorry, it's very difficult to express in my words what you're saying because you express yourself so since your language is very sophisticated, but I will try anyway. For me, it's difficult. So even the situation is very urgent. The action can't be only urgent or fast. Sometimes it requires a little bit more reflection and persistent action that lets the movement go on. Is more or less that what you mean?
Yes, that's it. You did a very good job. Uh, Sorry, I will try to be a little more less
No.
sophisticated. But that's why I came today, was because it sounded. I watched a little bit of the video about the idea, and it seemed to me to strike that, say, we need to talk about how not to go too fast.
Mhm. So you look at the video and you think that this is the topic we should talk about, how to not rush too much, maybe slow down a little bit to make it
Yes,
more grounded, more stable.
yes, yep. and I feel fully heard. Thank you, Carolina.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I may maybe choose Ben Man. Or maybe Kevin. Do you want to speak? Do you want to try?
I will do my very best.
Okay, so you're coming back to circle. Okay. And then, okay. Um, mm, I'm happy with this pamphlet by Rupert Red, Skeena, Razor, and Mark Wupatin. I'm glad that something like that was published. It's very difficult to read for somebody who is not native speaker, as I am. The language of this pamphlet is not easy for me, but I resonate with most of what I read there. I stop there.
So you appreciate the pamphlet that's recently been put out. You think it's an important piece. However, some of its language is a little bit difficult, just based on perhaps the barrier in language or whatnot. But what the basic message within the pamphlet resonates with you quite clearly.
Mhm. Thank you. And my reflection about the movement, well, I have a lot of ideas, but um, mm, first thing is that when the movement, any organization, expands too fast, it's very easy to lose the identity that was on the beginning, because many people join the organization or the movement, and when it's happening fast, people don't have time to learn really about the movement, to understand what this movement really is. And the new people join, and new people join, and the the core identity, the, so to speak, DNA of the movement kind of disappear, is so dissolved among newcomers and somehow disappear. It's typical situation. It's typical phenomenon of every movement that developing too fast.
So you're what you recognize, and you think it's quite common within movements, is that when they grow as rapidly as XR is growing, that the initial core values of what is the spawn of the movement begins to get a little bit strayed, perhaps, or frayed, if you will, by some of the new people that have been quickly brought into the movement, and maybe haven't done the research or haven't gone through any of the fundamental stuff that that some of the leaders have been speaking about in YouTube and such from the very beginning. So you maybe perhaps should that let that go? Is that okay?
Well, I don't know what the newcomers do. I don't know that, but I feel like it's easy to lose the identity by the movement. The starting, the beginning identity. Okay, and there is a lot of idea. I think, I don't know how much time I have.
About 30 seconds.
Okay, so I will not develop a new idea. I will stop there. And thank you for listening. Now your turn. And I know that Ben didn't.
So
Ben didn't reflect yet. Now it's your turn.
Ben, would you like to
Yeah, sure.
So, okay, so I agree very much with what Carolina says in terms of how when movements grow like this, how the original core message can be somewhat led astray. However, I look at XR's agenda and XR's desire to build the 3.5% support to try and elicit change, and there is major risk of losing the core values when you are trying to expand that fast to be able to do that.
Okay, so you look at
Would you like to?
Yeah. So you agree with Carolina on what she says about, you know, the danger of losing an identity, but then you look at the the agenda and the core values, and the sort of like, you know, the 3.5% who need to become like, you know, proponents of the movement, and you know, you kind of do worry that that could be lost if it expands too quickly.
Yes. But I'd also like to add that I was on early Zoom calls, April of 2019, when there was a discussion about, you know, what happened to Occupy. Micah White was on that, on one call in particular, and he spoke about, you know, how Occupy had failed based on its rigidity of having no leadership, or no actual. They didn't have anything to follow up with what the action had been able to accomplish, which I think was 183 cities or 183 countries, I think, at the time.
So you were on the early Zoom calls for Occupy, and there were, you know, discussions about what happened to Occupy a little while later, and there was the, you know.
It was a Zoom call, Extinction Rebellion Zoom call that had the founder, one of the founders from Occupy, was on the call expressing, you know, trying to help people avoid what he saw as the problem with Occupy.
Okay, so you're on this call, and Extinction Rebellion and the founder was on the call too, and you were trying to think about, like, you know, what happened to Occupy, you know, what was the problem, and there was kind of a consensus that it was something to do with leadership, like, you know, there wasn't enough leadership involved. So yeah, that was the conclusion. And you want to stop that from happening to Extinction Rebellion too?
Yeah. How much time do I have left, Bill?
Minute and 34.
Okay. What I'd like, what I think XR needs to do in 2020 is it needs to be, it needs to focus on its three values, on its three core values. And then I think it needs to be a hub and spoke concept where any group that has the same core philosophy of what XR stands for can actually become an XR supported concept, so that it allows XR to be more malleable to what is happening in the countries that they're trying to expand into. And I can use the example of what's happening in Canada right now with the railway shutdown that's happening on with Indigenous support of a pipeline that's being that's being, you know, it's being pushed through an indigenous community that, you know, that's not, it's turned into like, it's a major thing that's happening in Canada right now. And it's with XR's international desire to decolonize and to be more inclusive of people of color and of to be more inclusive. I think it behooves XR to take a look at this huge movement, this indigenous uprising, and try and support that within other Commonwealth countries.
Okay, so the thing about that's important to you. Yeah, no.
That's
yeah.
a big
so the
chunk,
thing
sorry.
that's important. Okay, so the thing that's important to you is, you know, XR maintaining true to its 3 core values, and also you want it to become a sort of hub and wheel sort of situation where there's a bespoke, you know, sort of approach so it can expand into other countries. And you're particularly interested in this thing that happened in Canada, where there's this Canada, where there's this pipeline being drilled, and you know, the uprising that's happening there, and you know, you'd like to see XR sort of get involved in movements like that and support movements like that, because you really want inclusion for other communities like Black people and other kind of you know, minorities.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Ben. I feel heard.
Okay.
Ben, your turn.
I'd like Bill to reflect me.
Okay, ready.
Yeah. Cool. That was a lot to remember all at once. That was a real challenge to try and keep all that in mind and stay with Kevin at the same time.
So it was a real challenge for you to try to hold what Kevin was saying and reflect that.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was kind of fun too. And
fun.
I mean, I was wondering how long Kevin's been a member of these groups,
Mm-hmm.
whether there might be some kind of you know, some kind of competition involved in sort of how long you can reflect, so how long you can share something or reflect something.
Right. So you were just wondering if there's a kind of an unwritten competition about how long you can, you know, hold something and reflect it.
Yeah, but yeah. Okay. I'm seeing Carolina shaking her head, so
Yeah,
at
I
least one
agree with
person disagrees
Caroline.
with that.
It's not a competition. And I just broke the rule.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. So, yeah, I was really torn. I had this conflict with this guy,
Mm-hmm.
whether to, you know, stand up and confront him. But the thing is, he's been there for quite a long time, and his opinions, sort of like, you know, seem to be much more established in the group. You know, he seemed to command a bit of respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I know from experience that if I challenge somebody like that too early on, having joined a group, it can result in lots of people taking their side instead of my side.
Right. So you were reflecting back to the kind of conflict you had with a more older and established member of XR who, you know, had gained a certain amount of standing, and you were feeling iffy about, you know, when the time to challenge his assumptions might be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting the idea of leadership came up, because I spoke about that briefly in the last session.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really trying to decide how strongly to assert myself, like, versus just being receptive.
Mm-hmm.
Because I find if I'm very receptive, I can find out lots of things that are going on. But if I don't assert myself, sometimes it seems almost like nothing changes. So you know, I don't. They seem like two completely disparate forces, and I don't understand at all how to reconcile them. it seems like completely different energies coming from different places, and I don't have an idea about like what to do with them both really.
Okay, so you're really kind of feeling a kind of internal conflict between your wanting to assert yourself and also to be receptive, and they seem to be opposite as you're experiencing them now. You know, they seem to be well, in conflict right now. Those that between aggressive and then also being receptive, both have their both. It seems like to me that you're committed to doing both, but you're kind of wondering how to arrange them. Is that right?
Less. I mean, I think I could live quite a comfortable life, quite a happy life, if I was just extremely receptive.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really developed that quite strongly.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of almost feel like something would be lost.
Okay. So you're feeling that you could avoid a lot of conflict and life would be nice if you just were receptive, but then you feel that you would be denying an important part of yourself, an expressive part of yourself.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I've been getting a little bit freaked out recently about just how receptive some people are. And it's really like, you know, I've almost got this question, like, you know, is it unethical to embrace like somebody else's consciousness with your own consciousness? You know, is that an unethical thing to do?
Yeah, so you were thinking about being receptive or almost too receptive. And if you accept someone else's ideas or consciousness without any kind of, judgment or anything like that, is that ethical? I mean, are you
Yeah.
being true to yourself as well as the other person?
Yeah, thanks. I feel heard.
Okay, great. All right. I'll talk to Kevin.
Okay, Bill.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kevin. I want to talk to you because I kind of wanted to respond to what you said. I had attended an XR onboarding training, I guess about a week ago or so. And it was interesting. And I have to say that I'm struggling with some of the same things that Ben is, that I don't accept everything that everybody's saying. But the way they explained the structure of XR, I believe relates to your issue. I'll stop there.
So you had a recent had attended a recent on-board meeting, and recognized some of the same things that Ben had mentioned in terms of the dynamic between the new and the old that may be within the space.
Mm-hmm.
And but you have something to add to what I guess what I'd mentioned about perhaps the hub and spoke idea.
Yeah. So it was a young man, very nice man, Ahen, of XR San Francisco, who did it. And so what he explained was that there are various groups. It's a self-organizing system. And there are various groups doing things. And then those groups send representatives to kind of like I don't want to call it central committee, but I have an organizing committee. And so if you want to do something, you can organize anything you want, take it to that organizing community, that organizing group rather, and then you get what's called a mandate. As long as you're following just what you said, as long as you're following the principles of XR, you could get a mandate. And so therefore, you would then plug right into XR support. I'll stop there.
Okay, so there is a system that is internalized within XR that if there's an existing movement that is out there, no matter where it is, but it follows the core values of let's call it the 3 demands of XR, that you can get a mandate from XR for support for whatever your potential actions might be.
Right. And I say this knowing that, XR is a young movement. It might be more developed in San Francisco than it is in Canada. I don't know. But basically, that should go, that general structure should be valid. I'll stop there.
Yeah. So you're saying that, it may be because XR is young, it may be larger in some parts or other countries than it might be in Canada. So, yeah. Sorry, Bill.
That's all right.
yapped on the
Just
last.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. The structure would be there, but it wouldn't necessarily be as developed, possibly. That's something I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I'm coming on with my. See, you can't even understand that. So basically, this is my idea for the day, or for the action that's sort. And there's sort of there's a through line. I know this is later. Maybe people can see something like that. You can take notes. But basically, what would there be is that these three things here would be, and it doesn't have to be three, it could be more, would be a bunch of empathy circles. So people can go in to be heard. And they could be heard on any topic or specific topics. In other words, you wouldn't have just a row of people, but small groups of circles, and then some of them would be open, and some of them would be, and you could even have a dyad. You could have one person sitting with a chair, and if people are intimidated, so we want to reach out to as many people as possible. So that's the empathy circle, and that would be the heart of the action. Then off to the side, you have dance and music. So you can have dance like Sufi dancing, and you can have music, a drumming circle, and all of that, the through line here is communication. A lot of these are ways to communicate, like the theater, and then on the other side, I have theater games, which is a way to communicate silently, and then writing, reflective writing, improvisational writing. And then I'm going to run out of time. And then going back, you would have a people's assembly and then a citizens assembly. So you go back into it, you go deeper into XR, and you're participating in their democratic process. I'm thinking food, and that's it. So that's my time.
Yeah. And I'm supposed to reflect on all that then, eh,
No,
Bill?
just say what I would use the way I eat on this, Kevin, and I'm.
Well, it's your turn now, Kevin.
Yeah, right. It's just say, oh, you want to have a big festival, and then let it go at that.
But I do see what you're saying in Bill, and I do understand in that, like, you think that the empathy circle is a great way to enter, and then from that point is where you can then see the other components and all the other modules of XR as they grow, depending on what that action is.
Great, thank you, Kevin. I feel fully heard. That was great. Great synthesis. Great synthesis. I'm impressed.
Kevin, your turn, and I would like to say that Steve wasn't speaking for quite long. Now your turn,
well then,
Kevin.
yes, Steve, would you like to listen?
I'll try.
And I will try and keep my input short so that you can follow along. I can't get over enough of my interpretation of XR's desire to be more relevant in more countries. And all of the input that I've been able to find has been talking about inclusion and decolonization and all these efforts that XR needs to get over its whiteness and needs to grow within many, many different communities. And the scenario that we have in Canada, actually, why don't you go with that, Steve?
Okay. Your concern is that XR needs to be better in expanding into other countries and engaging more countries. And I forgot the second part. I'm sorry, I
And
lost the second part there. Kevin, say it.
that's fine.
No, say it. Please tell me. Go ahead.
My perception is that it is. My perception is that every group is working on the same thing. Every small group is working on inclusion, working on ways to be more inclusive. So as much as it's happening in small groups, it needs to happen at the overarching scale also.
Right. Yes. So not inclusion and engagement. Well, engagement, but I'll say inclusion needs to happen at all levels, not just at the local level, but also at the national or global, I guess, level.
That's great, Steve. And I'll just add that, like, with the details that are happening in Canada, like I should share some perhaps by chat, but it's such perfect timing for XR to take a look at and to internationally support the motion that's happening in Canada because of it being in a Commonwealth country. And we've recently seen 1 billion animals burn in another Commonwealth country. So I was on the front lines at this Indigenous railway blockade, and they don't disconnect this pipeline concern in Canada from the overarching situation within the climate crisis in the whole planet. Would you like to try that, Steve?
Sure. And so the story of what's happening in Canada with respect to this railway pipeline.
Sorry, it's
slash
a railway blockade in protest of a pipeline.
Okay, railway / pipeline controversy, you believe, is a good case for XR to pick up and point to, along with other stories, as in Australia with the fires and so forth, as good examples of what XR is about, and make it more understandable, like this, more engaging to a larger audience.
Yes, even a catalyst, if I can add, even a catalyst, a tool.
Okay.
But I'm heard. Thank you.
Okay.
So it's your turn, Steve?
Yes, okay. And now let's see. Are you, Carolina, are you the only one left? Are we going in the proper circles? Is that?
You can choose whoever you want.
Okay. Well, we seem to be going in the same circle, so I guess I will pick you again.
Okay.
Okay. So I think that I did want to. There is a dilemma, and it goes back to what Ben. I think I empathize with Ben of being in a situation where you don't want to challenge. You have concerns about challenging authority, but a question should not a reasonable question about a situation should not be taken as a challenge to that authority. So if you, instead of saying to the authority figure, you are not being clear, it can be phrased in the way you say, I don't understand. Would you please clarify? And that way you can say, I want to understand you better, and it's not taken as a challenge to authority.
So you're thinking about the situation Ben described a few runs ago, and you're thinking that you believe that it might be differently set up. You mean that instead of challenging somebody who seems to be authority in a group, instead of challenging this person, we can simply ask, saying it's not clear what you're saying or what you're doing. It's better to ask for clarification and to say I don't understand. So it's kind of pulling. It's kind of arising this challenging element of from the relation, and
That's right.
it gives
Hmm.
authority person a chance to create a different relation.
That's right. So it really does come back to active listening,
Mhm.
which is I believe, the essence of empathy circles, is to understand how you can use listening in a way that is not challenging authority, but inquiring and yes, non-challenging.
Mhm. So you're thinking that this tool we're using here in empathy circle and active listening and is a tool for, as you speak, not challenging, but how do you describe that? Uh, you need to help me.
Yeah,
Not
yeah. Being it to be curious.
be curious.
Um,
Okay.
say I am curious,
Inquiring,
and
inquiring. You said
yes,
inquiring. Yeah.
inquiring, be curious.
Mhm.
Nobody can. That way, it's not a challenge to authority.
Yeah. So being curious about the
Right.
other side of the relation.
Right. And I think so. I think that's the strength. I think yes. But the other part being that I agree with what the other parts being that there needs to be autonomy within delegated responsibility. I think, and I forget. I guess that was Bill or
Mhm.
talking about the structure of an organization that provides some structure but some delegation, there being a balance between structure and flexibility, and not too rigid and not too flexible. The balance of there is a way that good organizations can operate in any setting with the right balance of flexibility and structure.
Mhm. So you're referring to what Bill was saying before earlier, and the need of finding the balance between the structure and flexibility of the organization or movement that doesn't create it, it's I if I understand that correctly, it's about creating non-hierarchical structure that is not very how to say that, strong but flexible more, and finding the balance in it.
Yep,
That,
that's right. Yep, the optimum design. Thank
mhm.
you, Carolina. I feel
Thank
fully
you.
heard.
Thank you. And I will choose Ben. Ben, would you reflect me? You are muted, Ben.
Yes,
Okay.
I will reflect you.
Okay. Um, I'm a little bit surprised about this relation with, so to speak, authority guy. But I suppose it's kind of the situation when somebody who is a member of the movement for a long time has kind of higher rank in a group than somebody who is newcomer. So if this is authority in that meaning, in that sense, I can accept that. That's natural, more or less. But it shouldn't happen like that, that we can't express ourselves because there is somebody who endanger our membership in a movement.
So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
can I reflect?
Mm-hmm.
So, you're thinking, you're surprised what happened with this guy who'd been around for longer, and he had a sort of more, he had a more established leadership, and it's kind of leadership. It seems natural in some ways, but at the same time, it doesn't seem right that somebody should, not be able to express themselves in a group, and endanger their membership. Does that seem right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it might be also a different way. Maybe the situation, maybe some other members of the group actually thought, okay, this newcomer, I mean you, raised the thing we were thinking for quite long, and somebody speak up about things we're thinking for quite long. So it might be this way. You don't know that yet because you don't know other people very well, and they couldn't express themselves about the issues they are dealing with. So everything is not yet clear for you. I would be patient.
Okay. So, um, okay. So you're also thinking that, this other guy, like other people might have been, thinking for quite a long, they might be saying things that people were thinking for quite a long time. And, I don't know really, it could have been he was speaking up, but he was saying things that, they all agreed with. So, that could have been an established thing. So, it's not all clear for me because I don't know yet. So I need to be patient and take some time with it.
Yeah, I think so. That would I would try if I would feel okay with this group, obviously. If I
Mm.
would feel comfortable in the group. I don't have to agree with everyone.
So
That
that's what you
would be
try.
my attitude.
Yeah. So that's what you try. If you were going to be in this group, you don't have to agree with everyone. That would be your attitude.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, coming back to the vision, I think that part of principles and values are some of the points are deeply misunderstood by many activists. Well, obviously, that's my point of view, and I might be wrong, but I think I'm right.
So,
um,
to coming back to the vision and values, you think many of the points of view, established points of view, aren't understood by many activists. So you might be wrong.
they might be wrong, yeah.
They might be wrong.
Yeah, I believe so. Uh, so, for example, this idea of 3.5%, which is very popular, is a very deep misunderstanding because it's about bringing down dictatorship and to revolt and change power, people in power. You may need 3.5% of population involved in an action, but to change the culture we live in, it's not enough. We need to shift our culture to something else that will preserve our planet. And that 3.5% is not enough. It's a different issue.
So you believe that these ideas, like 3.5%, aren't enough. They're not actually good. It's to do with taking down dictatorship, but it's not actually going to do the trick because, what we really need is, a shift in the way that we think. and to protect our planet.
Yeah, yeah. And it has to be the whole culture, the whole civilization shift. That's not 3.5%. It's much more.
Yeah. It's much more than 3.5%.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Cool.
Your turn.
Well, I was reflecting on what Steve said about conflict, and
So you're
somebody
choosing
told.
Steve?
Oh yeah, I need to choose somebody, don't I? Yeah, I will choose Steve. Yeah, I'll definitely choose Steve. Yeah. Steve, you up for that?
Okay, unmuted.
Yeah. So I was reflecting on what you were saying about avoiding conflict, and I was thinking that, well, actually, somebody told me off the other day for avoiding conflict. They said to me, well, do you think that all of life can be harmonious and that everything can be like super sweet and calm around you all the time? And I thought to myself, actually, no. I think a lot of progress is made when you have conflict and you deal with it well.
Okay. It sounds like you were pondering the question of how to challenge authority, and somebody was talking with you about how you could, whether or not your expectations are such that whether you thought it could be totally harmonious and without conflict.
Yeah, that's right.
Whether that was realistic.
Yeah, and
They were
and,
wondering.
and,
Go ahead.
and I was and to myself that I whether it's actually most of the conflicts that I've had that have been handled well actually turn out to be really positive, and they tend to be a source of mutual growth.
And so you've been saying, I think I heard you. You look back upon, you reflect upon your conflicts, and they ended up being, in the long run, beneficial.
Yeah, I think I can have this sense that nobody can hurt me sometimes if I just protect myself and I don't actually say anything real. Can you reflect that?
Oh, if you can, think you can protect yourself by not saying anything.
Yeah, specifically that nobody can hurt me.
Specifically, right? That by being passive, nobody can hurt you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I doubt sometimes the effectiveness of these containers to make it. I mean, I think it does have progress, but the progress here is so slow. It's excruciating sometimes.
I'm sorry, you said containers?
Yeah, the empathy circles.
Oh, okay. I see. You're thinking that the progress in these empathy circles can be too slow, that you consider it to be too slow sometimes.
Yeah, and one thing that really pisses me off, I mean, one thing I really value about this actually, though, is that, everybody gets heard and everybody gets seen, like there's actual, contact of communication, and that's valuable. I kind of value places where people are willing to do that.
And that you like the idea of what appears to you to be feeling heard, feeling understood, and that being validated is of value, and is of value, and you appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks. I feel heard.
Okay, Steve, your turn.
Oh, seems too soon for me again.
You have to pick it.
Right.
Pick
Okay.
somebody.
You can pass.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sure. Well, I'm even Steven, so I'll pass.
Okay. Who are you going to pass to, or who are you
Oh,
going to?
right. Let's see. Looking at my list here. How about Bill? Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Um, okay, so I hear that you're even Steven, and that you were just didn't really have anything you had to say at the moment, and so you were willing to pass. Is that
Um,
correct?
no, I have something to say. I just want to be fair and let someone.
No, no, then say it. Yeah, I'll be
Oh,
happy to listen to you.
oh, okay. Well then, yes. As far as what Ben
Mhm,
was talking about, I just wanted to pass on that. I late in life, I took some mediation training, and
mhm,
mediation training is basically uh, uh, listening. It does have to do with active listening and
mhm.
empathy and so forth, but in a way that draws people out. So he might consider looking into mediation. I thought it was something else. I thought it had to do with uh, making decisions for people, but it's drawing people out by asking them more about what they think, and then things become more apparent all on their own without you having to tell them. You know, it becomes more apparent to them. So I guess I just
Okay,
wanted to pass that on
so
to Ben.
then
Check
I'm
out
sorry.
mediation.
So then, if I
Go ahead.
understood, then you have two basic suggestions for Ben. One was the fact that you had taken some mediation training, and you found that if you could find a mediator or take the training, those skills would be useful. And the other one is just simply listening and drawing people out and being receptive, listening to what they have to say, then engaging them in dialogue, and both can change the paradigm.
Right. In fact, I would even consider the idea that I appreciate what empathy circle. I That's right, and I do feel that empathy circles in some form is needs
Mm-hmm.
to be be educated in the same way that I was enlightened by mediation and going, oh, I thought I was being a good listener all
Mm-hmm.
along, but there needs to be something, and perhaps something like empathy circles light,
Mm-hmm.
that's has a lighter
Mm-hmm.
touch that would allow for more nimble and uh, more engaging uh, use in XR to engage people. I think it's a little onerous, like
Mm-hmm.
Ben was saying, a little onerous. So sorry about that. See if you didn't
Sure.
capture that.
Well, you
So
went in several directions as I said, so let's see if I got it right. One of the things you were talking about was the mediation, which is sort of a deeper. You like the empathy circle, but also find that the structure could be used. You talked about empathy circle light, where people would then be gently, kind of, as I assume, in get comfortable with the process and talking with someone else, and then deeper issues could be addressed. What did I miss there? I don't know if I got it all.
you did get it all, and I just wanted to. When I said empathy circles light, I meant something wasn't where it was a little more natural about listening without telling people that here's a paper on or a video to watch in order to participate in a conversation.
Okay, so you're talking about that, that the structure of the empathy circle can be a little clunky, and so therefore there should be a way for people just to engage in kind of gentle conversation and respectful.
Yes, but still with that's still with training still involved. How to do it in a light way.
Right. Okay. So then there would be some training on how to do that in a sort of more natural setting without the form of the empathy circle necessarily.
Mhm. Without people noticing that they're in an empathy circle.
Okay, I get it. So it would be natural. So, there would be general parameters that people would then feel very comfortable with. And so they could spontaneously get into conversation that would follow those rules, and feel very natural to them.
Right, but with a moderator, I mean, with someone like yourself, keeping some deft
Okay.
control. Thank you. I feel
So
fully heard.
there is some
Yeah.
idea of someone like moderating. So not completely like a natural conversation, but something where the conversation flows, and then you have sort of a facilitator with a light touch.
Correct. Thank you, Bill. That's it.
Okay, thanks. Okay. All right. Let's see. I haven't talked to Carolina.
Okay, I'm listening.
Well, some very interesting things. I'll respond to Steve a little bit. And I don't know if you remember, Rosa's last name, it starts with a Z, and then I keep forgetting.
Suzy Paretta or something.
Yeah, so all right, so Suzy
Zubi-
Paretta. Yeah, but
Something
and
like
Rosa,
that.
if you ever watch this, I apologize for for mispronouncing your name.
Yeah.
But that being said, she's a really talented facilitator, and she does something that's called dynamic facilitation. And what that is generally is that it starts with sort of an empathy circle check-in, and then it goes into more of a discussion where there is a facilitator who can rotate. It doesn't necessarily have to be one person, but then who writes down everything in the group and then starts to coalesce the material. It starts to bring the material together. Is that too much?
So you're talking about the Rosa workshop and her method of dynamic facilitation. So in a group, there is a facilitator who collects all the, well, it's starting with a little empathy circle and active listening, and then there is a discussion on particular topic, and facilitator collects all the ideas and thoughts, but it doesn't have to be one person. It can kind of what?
Rotate, I'm sorry.
It can rotate
Right.
among people who participate in this discussion.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that we say, that Edwin says all the time, that this is a basic tool that can be modified and employed in various ways. I'll stop there.
So this is the thing that very often Edwin is saying that I mean, you mean empathy circle?
Right. Yes, I do.
So empathy circle is the tool that might be used in many different situations, and one of those situations is this dynamic facilitation method, but it can be used in many other situations and methods.
Right. And I think that the I'm reading in reading some of the manifestos of XR, they kind of say civil disobedience, and some of the things that Hallam has written, is that we've got to do this protest thing, and I don't have the answers. I don't know everything, so I'm not against that. But I think we need to use every tool that we possibly can. If we're really going to be successful, we have to understand, number one, that we are one, humanity and one world, and we have to come together on some really shared goals. And then number two, we need to focus and then organize around those goals. Some things that sometimes feel contradictory. I'll stop there.
So I will start from the end. So you think that there are some core principles and values, and we should kind of focus on something that is common to all of us, and that will kind of reunite us. And then we should focus on whole spectrum of actions, not just an NVDA,
Hmm.
but much more other tools and actions that are possible, every possible form and tool to use for action.
Right, many tools. And I want to also, I was impressed, I attend another XR training about what the people are doing on the local level in England, and getting into politics and their local councils and things like that. And I was just very impressed, and very appreciative of that kind of work, because I think that that's the kind of work that we need to do. Grassroots, reaching out to people, and that's it. And then my time's up.
So you're thinking about the issue, the situation. You learn about people who are active locally
Mm-hmm.
in UK,
Yes.
in UK, in UK, and they are reaching other people, and they are do a lot. They make a lot of initiatives locally, not and they do a lot of things, and you are
Mm-hmm.
kind of impressed by their actions. It doesn't mean particular NVDA, it might be much more other things.
Thank
That's
you. I
what you
feel
mean?
fully heard.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe Kevin. Do you hear
I
me
will try.
properly? Because my connection is not stable. I hear you properly, but do you hear me properly?
Yes, I do.
Okay, maybe I stop my vision for a while until it will stabilize. Okay. I was thinking about what I was saying about this vision. I believe that this pamphlet we are talking about is the invitation to actually idea that has grown among us in Empathy Circle team, the idea of empathic direct action. I stopped there.
So you're within the context of the pamphlet. You feel that there's bringing in empathy circles into the NVDA. Is that correct, Carolina?
Well, we together, Bill was one of the initiators of this idea. We developed the idea of empathic direct action. So it's a new form of NVDA. And we believe that this is I believe that this is sort of response to this pamphlet, I would say. And actually, what Bill was describing as a festival is one of the ideas how to do empathic direct action.
So your thoughts are in terms of having empathic. Sorry,
It might be
empathic.
empathetic.
Yeah, direct NVDA to yeah, and that came out of the pamphlet, and it's fits in with Bill's idea of the big festival.
Well, I meant that Bill was one of the initiators, and actually we don't have clear clarity yet how it could look like. It would look like, but this is one of the visions that Bill described as a festival. This is actually the idea, and it doesn't grow from the pamphlet, but it responds to the pamphlet. I believe.
Okay. So the Bill's idea of the festival is it spawns from the pamphlet.
Response to the pamphlet, yeah.
Response to the pamphlet. Sorry about that, Carolina.
Yeah, that's okay. So I think that the mass action that involves empathic listening, active listening, talking to each other and trying to understand each other, that's a real change in our culture. That might be
Yeah,
a big event to create such mass action.
yeah, yeah. I hear you say that the concept of having mass actions in empathic circles is important, very important, but again, be very difficult to have it done en masse,
Well, I
but
didn't say
necessary.
that. I didn't say that it will be difficult. We don't know yet. I hope we will manage. But I think that this is the real change in a culture to create such thing. It might initiate some trend in a culture that kind of shifts us into different direction, may start changing something. So I I'm thinking about it like a sort of breakthrough something.
So the empathic circle, the communication style um, is very necessary, and it could be a catalyst or
Yeah,
to help move public opinion.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I feel heard.
I'm lucky there. Who would like to listen? And what do I have to say?
Ben
Would you like
man,
to listen, Ben?
Ben one.
Ben, would you like to listen?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've been thinking a little bit about that, the idea of empathy light, or how this empathy, how these have been working, and I wonder, like, in terms of having them more direct to the subject title within why we're here today is to talk about Extinction Rebellion 2020.
So you've been thinking about the empathy like, and you've been wanting to have that more specifically in a subject title as to why we're talking now about Extinction Rebellion 2020.
Yeah, to have, almost harkening back to what someone said recently about having a moderator, whoever that moderator might be, that kind of keeps us on track to what the goal of the discussion title.
Yeah, so you're interested in having a moderator in particular that keeps us on track to the goal of the discussion.
Yeah, almost a blended, what I've seen before in other types of discussions is a stacking method, right? And for me, it would be great, because sometimes what I find is that Ben might say something and then I want to respond to that, and I don't know if there's a way that stacking would potentially work or maybe not work within the empathy circle.
Yeah, so you're thinking about stacking as a different model with a moderator that would keep track of that, and you're thinking maybe that would work because you might have something you want to say to me, and that would be you want to work in this process, in this model.
Or if I was lucky enough to have a point that was moving enough for someone else to have to want to interject at that point, maybe that desire to add to my thought, let's say Carolina may have had a thought, maybe her desire to actually add to what I'm saying dissolves over time, because there's been another flow that's that doesn't allow her input at that time.
Yeah, so if you had a point that maybe Carolina wanted to interject and say something, you might be lucky enough to, you might want her input immediately. So that could be valuable, you see.
Yeah, I think so. Yes. And again, yeah, I guess I won't start another point. My time's probably up. So
No, you have 2
thank
minutes.
you. I feel
You've got 2 minutes left.
2 minutes. Okay, so 2 minutes. I just, everything that yeah. I'm just thinking for a moment how to make my last minute the best. The 3.5%, Carolina, I totally agree with you. It's not enough. The number needs to be much, much higher. But I take a look at right now, again, I got to harken back to what's happening in Canada with this indigenous protest. Like the railway in Canada has been shut down like for almost 3 weeks. And there's been a divestment in a $20 billion expansion to an oil project since the lockdown of the railway system has brought the consciousness. And I believe that the consciousness we're looking for is within the indigenous methods.
Right. So the consciousness is within the indigenous, like there's something about inside the indigenous methods, a quality, and you think you've seen it, and you think that would really, contribute to what we're trying to do here. So yeah, you're really interested in this pipeline.
Yeah. Thanks, I'm heard with that, and I'll just finish up to mention that I have put in a couple things in our note in the chat. If anyone wanted to search the hashtag to see the magnitude of what's happening here, because it's being largely underreported.
So yeah, you put a note in the chat, and if anybody wants to see the magnitude of what's going on there, they can check it out.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ben.
Cool. Okay, so it's either Bill or Carolina. It's either got to be Bill or Carolina. I think Carolina.
I'm listening.
I spoke quite strongly to Steve a little while ago. I noticed my voice rising in volume and intensity.
Mm-hmm. So you're thinking about the way you were thinking a few minutes ago, and you realize that you start speaking louder. You raise your voice. That's what you mean?
So, yeah. And as you were talking afterwards and you were reflecting, I was really interested to see different qualities. I could feel a bit more energy in the room, and at the same time, a kind of and when Bill was talking as well, kind of balancing out between that and sort of like having a sense of moderation. Yeah, can you reflect that?
I'm not sure what you're saying because I hear you not very clearly. I'm afraid you need to repeat that.
Yeah. So I was kind of aware during the reflections that you did and the sharing that you did and that Bill did of a balancing of energy.
So you noticed during during my turn and Bill's turn, kind of shifting the energy and balancing around between all of us.
Yeah. It seemed like you're introducing themes that okay, so find this format very strange because we're all connected here in a group, but at the same time, I can't physically feel the people around me. You know, I can't feel people's body language, and it's really strange. And after the first meeting I came to after this, I was, you know, next time I went out socially, I was in a really strange position because I almost couldn't you know, I almost didn't trust the body language that I was getting from people.
So you mean that we are connected in this circle. There is some kind of connection, but you feel like you can feel body language, like we are together with you. That's what you mean?
Sort of, yeah. It's very strange. It's a disconnect. It's you know, not quite always sure what to make of it. Sometimes I wonder who invented the internet, you know?
So you kind of thinking about who invented internet
Yeah.
and how it's happening.
Yeah, that's right. That's bang on. Yeah, yeah. Thanks. Yeah, yeah. Cool. Kevin's got it. Yeah.
Then
Right. Anyway, that's the end of it, isn't it?
yeah, it will take us away from this room very quickly.
If you're recording, you could stop your circle.
Okay.